San Francisco is a graveyard disguised as a city. It wasn't built on innovation. It was forged by a global psychosis. Gold didn't make men rich. It turned them into feral animals. Beneath the pavement, a ghost fleet of 500 ships rots in the dark, holding up the streets you walk on. And justice? It was a lynch mob in silk suits, hanging their own government from warehouse beams. This isn't a success story. It's a horror story written in blood. And the nightmare begins with this face. Look closely at the faces in this daguerreotype. Do you see the glimmer of the American dream? Or do you see the hollow, haunted stare of men who realized too late that they had walked into a beautiful trap? History books love to paint the California gold rush of 1849 as a glorious adventure of fortune. But the reality captured in this image tells a much darker story. This wasn't a treasure hunt. It was a mass migration of desperation, a madness that turned doctors, lawyers, and farmers into feral animals, clawing at the earth until their fingers bled. When gold was discovered at Sutter's Mill, it triggered a global psychosis. Within months, San Francisco exploded from a sleepy hamlet of 1,000 souls into a chaotic metropolis of 25,000. But look at their clothes, stiff with mud, worn thin by the unforgiving elements. These men, the 49ers, didn't find a paradise. They found a purgatory. They stood knee-deep in freezing streams for 12 hours a day, battling dysentery, battling scurvy, battling each other, all for a few flakes of yellow metal that might buy them a stale loaf of bread. In this lawless explosion of greed, inflation was the real killer. A single egg could cost the equivalent of $30 today, and a pickaxe was worth more than a human life. The irony is suffocating. While the miners broke their backs and died in poverty, the real fortunes were made by the merchants selling them the shovels and the denim jeans to cover their sores. The system was rigged from the start. This image is a frozen testament to the greatest gamble in American history. It captures the exact moment civilization collided with the wild frontier. San Francisco became a ticking time bomb of filth, arson, and anarchy. But as thousands of men poured into the bay every single day, blinded by gold fever, a terrifying logistical nightmare began to unfold. The city had no infrastructure, no houses, and no space. So, what happens when you have an ocean full of abandoned ships? And a city that doesn't physically exist yet? You don't build buildings. You steal them from the sea. Stare at this sketch. Really stare at it, because your brain is trying to reject what it sees. This isn't a surrealist fever dream. This was downtown San Francisco in 1850. You are looking at the Niantic, once a proud whaling vessel, now a landlocked leviathan, drowning in a sea of mud. Notice the bizarre architecture? That is a two-story hotel built directly onto the deck, with a front door sliced right through the ship's oak ribs. How does this happen? It's the phantom limb of the gold rush. In just a few months, over 500 ships sailed into the bay and never left. Captains, sailors, cooks, everyone deserted to chase the gold, leaving behind a ghost fleet so dense it looked like a dead forest of stripped masts rotting in the harbor. San Francisco was growing faster than it could build. So, the settlers did something insane. They dragged these abandoned hulks onto the shore. They turned brigs into saloons, schooners into jails, frigates into brothels, a weird amphibious city where you could get drunk or get arrested, inside the belly of a rotting ship. The ground itself was just trash and sand poured over these hulls to expand the waterfront. Today, beneath the financial district, the skeletons of these ships are still there, buried in the dark. But a city built on abandoned ships has no foundations. It was a labyrinth of shadows and leaking holes, a perfect breeding ground for rats and predators. With the police force bought by corrupt politicians, the streets became a slaughterhouse. Robbery was a daily transaction. Murder was just a way to settle a dispute. The citizens realized the government was the enemy. So the merchants stopped waiting for justice. They put down their ledgers, they picked up their rifles, and they decided to build a wall right in the middle of the street. Witness the architecture of pure rage. This is not a military base on a war-torn border. This is Fort Gunnybags, built right in the heart of Sacramento Street, 1856. Look at the men standing guard. This is the most terrifying detail. They aren't wearing uniforms. They aren't soldiers. They are gentlemen, dressed in silk top hats, starched collars, and expensive frock coats. But look at their hands. They are clutching bayoneted muskets. With a familiarity that should make you shiver, San Francisco had reached its breaking point. The corruption was so deep. The ballot boxes were stuffed. The judges were owned by the gangs. So the Vigilance Committee was born. A private army of 6,000 merchants, bankers, and clerks who decided that if the law wouldn't work, they would become the law. They stacked thousands of sandbags, gunny sacks, to create this fortress against their own government. They pointed cannons down the main avenues. And when the great bell of the Monumental Engine Company tolled, it wasn't for a fire. It was the sound of judgment. Imagine the silence of 3,000 armed men marching through these streets. No shouting, no riots. Just the terrifying discipline of a mob that believes it is righteous. They dragged politicians and criminals out of the jails, and they didn't put them on trial. They pushed them out of second-story windows, with ropes around their necks. Public hangings, right here, before a crowd of thousands who watched without blinking. This image captures the ultimate paradox of San Francisco, a city so desperate for order, it had to embrace chaos to find it, a place where the line between a hero and a murderer was as thin as a hemp rope. So, look back at the journey from the feral mud of the miners, to the rotting hulls of the ghost ships, to the sandbag walls of the vigilantes. This is the true DNA of the city. We see San Francisco today as a beacon of technology and progress. But dig a little deeper, scratch the surface of the pavement, and you will find that this golden city was built on a foundation of blood, mud, and gunpowder.